Hey everyone, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we have an incredible guest. This is a historic moment. We are going to be talking about, this is the first ever time we are actually going to be able to have a professional talk about owning laundromats. I'm so excited to dip into the sauce. He can't wait. He's backstage. You all are in tune for a very special episode today. Don't want to miss 1 second of what this gentleman has to say. Here we go. Hey everyone, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have Mr. Jordan Berry backstage. This man is the true blue legend. He's here to spill some tea, can't spill all the tea, but some tea, some great tea on business ownership, cash flow, and investing, and his story on how he got into, him and his family got into the laundromat business. He's going to talk about the pros, the cons, and everything in between, and everything that you want to know, I want to know. And I'm going to be a little selfish this episode. This man is not your typical success story. It's not going to be, success overnight, but it's going to be hard work overnight. And this man, I couldn't think of a better guest. I was so excited when he responded to me. I was like, oh my gosh, fingers crossed. It's like getting your favorite celebrity. So without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. Jordan Berry.
Hey. Man, you know how to pump a guy up getting on the show, man. Now I'm like super excited. It's like embarrassingly excited to talk about laundromats right now, but I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, man.
No, you did the work, sir. You deserve everything. It's your resume. You are a true phenomenal. And you're doing something that I like to really dive deep into. And I think it's a new era. It's a new age. It's what is happening and we don't even see it. You are actually in a space that everybody wants the tech business. Everybody wants the fancy blockchain technology business, but you're doing something that's always been around, always been here. And I got to ask, when did it start? Why laundromats? Because you have an incredible mind. You could do anything you want to do. Why the business of laundry? How did you get there?
Well, first of all, you're starting to sound like my mom, telling me I have an incredible mind and stuff. Nobody else tells me that. So I appreciate that. So a little bit of my background is I was a pastor for 15 years, youth pastor and a pastor for almost 15 years. And I've got a couple kids. I'm married. And when my kids were young, it was just time to take a hiatus from doing vocational ministry. And so looking for a different path, doing ministry, being a pastor, you're delving into a lot of heavy emotional stuff with people a lot. And it was just draining and, again, young kids and stuff. So we're looking for something, a direction that I could pivot to in order to, free up some time with the kids, be a little bit more of a help around the house for my wife. So I have a great idea. So we live in Southern California here, and I thought, why don't we do this? Our kids are young. Let's rent out our house here in Southern California. Let's take the money we have in the bank. Let's go buy a condo on the beach in Hawaii and live there until our kids are school age. And then if we want to, we can come back. Net gain condo on the beach in Hawaii, which I thought was genius. And my wife said we could do that, or we could buy a laundromat. So that is my foray into that. So the question I get all the time is, why did your wife say that? And it's funny because if you knew my wife, you would know this is like the last thing you'd expect from her. However, her family had a family friend who he worked a high paying tech job in San Francisco Bay Area and but was working 70, 80 hours a week. And he bought a laundromat and replaced his tech income and was working 5 to 10 hours a week. And that just sounded really awesome to us. And so that was the plan. However, it did not go that way, and I'm sure we can get into that if you want to. The goal was money coming in, very little time investment. It ended up we lost money for a long time. I was at that thing all the time trying to figure out how to get this thing turned around. So exact opposite of what we were hoping for, but that was the goal behind doing this thing.
Absolutely. Shout out to your wife first off. Right. Let's give her flowers.
Yes.
And so we're going to touch on the laundromat, but you did something unique and almost unheard of. You were pastoring, right? And then you went into laundromat. So
Yeah.
did something happen there? What caused you to transition and leave ministry, or are you still in ministry?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're still involved in church and stuff. It's just not my vocation, not my job anymore. And, nothing necessarily happened. It was just time to make that transition. It was time to, like I said, young kids. And I spent a lot of evening hours because we had stuff going on in the evenings throughout the week. I was traveling quite a bit because we'd be doing different things kind of all over the country, all over the world. And, it was taxing, and especially with 2 young kids and all that, and especially on my wife. So it was just time for that transition. So that's why I transitioned out. And actually I transitioned out before having any plan, which was a little scary and probably not the smartest thing. And I also transitioned out without any knowledge about business ownership, real estate, which is probably why things didn't go well early on. It's definitely why.
So was you were pastoring, your wife was working or not, or you was supporting the household?
At the time, she was stay at home. My wife is a teacher. She's a special education teacher. But at that time with our young kids, she was a stay at home mom.
Absolutely. And then when you left ministry, did that change, or you still continue to work hard to support her to stay at home with the kids?
Yeah. So for a while, it didn't change, but eventually she did go back to work. When the kids started going back to school, she went back to teaching until this year, actually. And this year she's not teaching anymore for the first time since then.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's huge. That is different and that's unique. And so what happened? Did you buy a franchise? Not a franchise. Did you buy a laundromat? Did you buy a franchise laundromat, or did you build one from scratch? What when your wife came with a fabulous idea, which path did you guys take?
Yeah, so we ended up buying an existing laundromat. It's what we call, I now know this, I didn't know this at the time, but it's what we call in the industry a zombie mat. It's basically a fixer-upper laundromat. Half the machines don't work, half the lights don't work. It's what a lot of people think of when they think of laundromats, actually. And we bought that with the intention of putting all new machines in, renovating the place, cleaning it up, and growing that business.
And so there was what happened? Was this a family friend, an abandoned laundromat, like you bought it from an owner? How'd you find it?
So we kind of classic what a lot of people do. I looked on Biz whatever. So they're all Biz Buy Sell, Biz Bin, Biz something, right? One of the Biz sites, and found a laundromat for sale. And I reached out to the broker. That laundromat ended up not working out, but the broker was like, I have this other laundromat, and it was the one that we ended up buying. So he directed us to this other laundromat, and we bought it and went for it.
Can you share any numbers? How much did it cost?
Yeah.
How much did you work the deal down? Did you talk them down?
Yeah, we did. Okay, so it's been a little over a decade, so I'm going to do my best here. I want to say they were asking somewhere in the neighborhood of 110. We in 110,000. We ended up buying it for 65-ish or 70, something like that, and we paid cash for it. And then we put in almost all new equipment in there, washers and dryers. And so again, this was like a decade ago. So I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000, $175,000 worth of equipment that we put in there. And then we financed that equipment. And one good thing about laundromats is that you can oftentimes you can get 100% financing on things like equipment. So we did 100% finance that equipment there and paid for it over 7 years, I think.
Huge. This is tea. This is the tea I've been talking about. I told you I've been looking forward to this all week. Oh my gosh. So that's huge. You purchased, you talked them down because you obviously did your walkthroughs and inspections, right? And
Yeah.
saw that there were some
Well,
deficiencies with this laundromat. Why was
yeah.
he selling? He was tired of the business, or
It was a lady. So listen, I'm gonna just give it to you here, straight raw how it was. Like I said, I didn't know anything about anything. So the broker, it was a lady who was selling
no
it.
chaser.
The broker said, listen, we don't really need to do due diligence. We know this thing's basically just breaking even. It's not making money. We're going to come in and put all new stuff in there. So we don't really need to do any due diligence. Well, that made a lot of sense to me at the time. Don't do your due diligence no matter what, people. Just there's a good lesson for you. It's an expensive one for me. But so we didn't do that. And it turned out it wasn't breaking even. It was losing a few $1,000s a month. And this, I don't want to like scare anybody, but just the reality of my situation was not typical, but this particular laundromat was in East Los Angeles, a little bit of a rougher neighborhood. It had become gang territory, gang turf. And I literally was in a gang war, a turf war with a gang. So it was all kinds of, here I am with two little kids thinking I'm going to be making boatloads of money for very little effort. And I'm here working all the time and literally trying to reclaim this business back from the previous owner had just kind of let it go and didn't want to deal with it and didn't know how to deal with it. And so we took it over. That's why they cut such a quote unquote deal on that thing. So so it was rough. It was rough.
For sure. In the middle of a gang war, y'all. He did all of this while fighting crime, like Dark Knight. Are you handy at all? You said you was in there a lot. So
Yeah.
are you handy at all? Were you in there doing the work? Were you in there just trying to prevent the rival gangs from breaking in or prevent theft or vandalism? Why were you working so much in this laundromat?
Yeah. So we put in almost all new machines, so there wasn't a whole lot of machine maintenance to do. I am handy. You don't have to be, by the way, to be in this business, but I am pretty handy. And I did do some of the renovations myself, while I was there. But a lot of it was, this was an unattended laundromat. So somebody would just come in for an hour or two a day to clean the place up. And then the rest of the time, nobody was there. But what I realized was if nobody's there, it attracts the people that you don't want to be there. So I ended up having to just kind of be there more often to make sure the right people felt good and felt comfortable coming there and staying there and doing their laundry there. And the wrong people felt uncomfortable enough to not come and hang out and stay there. And so it's just kind of how it turned out with this particular laundromat. And again, don't want to scare anybody. However, I think it does mean something that I went through the experience that I did. Literally, I probably lost six figures over a few years there. And it was rough. There were some like really dark times. However, I think it should mean something that I'm still here on the podcast today, advocating for laundromat ownership and talking about how it can take you to financial freedom, despite everything that I've gone through, losing a bunch of money. And again, the gang thing, that is anomaly. That's not normal. But it is just part of my story.
How long, how many hours you working now? How many hours you putting in now?
Maybe 5 a week. Most of the time I spend, again, I'm here. I live in Orange County. Laundromats are in LA. So I spend more time on the freeways going there and back a lot of times than I do at the laundromats now.
So
that was not the case early on.
Yeah, so that's huge, y'all. That's why, thank you for that. I wanted to point that out. From being there almost all the time to now spending less than 5 hours or less a week, including your commuting time because it's long distance property management. Why laundromat versus real estate, right? All the gurus talk about real estate, the Grant Cardones of the world. Now you're the Grant Cardone of laundromat resources. So like what do you feel like the difference is, and why not do real estate instead of laundry?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, I got to get my private jet before I'll let you call me the Grant Cardone of Laundromat. So I'll work on that one, and then I'll let you call me that.
It's coming. It's
yeah.
coming.
So I invest in real estate. I love real estate. I think that real estate is a great investment vehicle. However, a lot of people are looking for financial freedom. A lot of people are looking to replace their income from their 9 to 5. I literally just got off a call with the guy who's trying to, replace his income and was wanting to know if he can do that with laundromats. And all that comes down to cash flow, right? And when it comes to cash flow, the average real estate investment cannot touch the average laundromat when it comes to cash flow. So on average, a laundromat should return about 20 to 25%. And that's unleveraged. That's without using a loan. So once you leverage it properly use a loan, that number can go up pretty significantly, 30, 40 plus percent of return on your cash on cash return on your investment. So it's, if your goal is financial freedom, if your goal is replacing your 9 to 5 income, if your goal is cash flow in any way, something like a laundromat, a business like a laundromat, oftentimes is going to give you a much quicker path to achieving those goals than real estate. Now, the benefit I call, there's what I call the wealth tripod, right? It's cash flow, equity, and tax advantages, right? Now, laundromats have all three of those. The cash flow is where it really stands out. Tax advantages are pretty good, and equity is good, but it grows a lot slower than real estate typically. And it's because it's a higher cash flowing asset. So when you compare owning a laundromat with real estate, you get the best of all three of those worlds, and it can really help you accelerate your wealth. So I do advocate investing in real estate. Listen to the Grant Cardones and the real estate gurus, to an extent, and invest in real estate. I'm a huge fan of that. However, if you have cash flow goals or financial freedom goals or leaving your 9 to 5 goals, you've got to chase you've got to chase the cash flow first, and you're just going to get a much higher return on your investment most of the time with something like a laundromat than you do with real estate. So that's why.
This is juicy. When I tell y'all, this is so good. So I want to stay right here for a second, right? Because we got the grand poobah right here of laundromats and spilling the tea on Gentleman Style Podcast Show. You can get this on iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Ghana, Facebook business page, Audible. We are everywhere you get your podcast, and we have the grand poobah, Mr. Jordan Berry, here today on Gentleman Style Podcast Show, spilling the tea on what his experience was. So give me some skin here. What was the laundromat when you first bought it? Was it coin operated? Did it have pickup drop off services? Can you give us some image of what you bought and what it is today?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was coin operated, no pickup and drop off, no, pickup and delivery, no services whatsoever. And when I first bought it, it was run down, broken down. Most of the machines didn't work. Most of the lights didn't work. It was dark. It was dingy, different mismatching wood panels on the wall. And probably homeless people sleeping on the benches. So that's the laundromat that I bought. We put in new machines. We redid the flooring. We redid the lighting. We, redid the folding tables, all that stuff to try to make it a lot nicer. And adding payment options is huge, right? Like giving people different options to pay. So having an option to pay with a card or an app payment it's massive. And a lot of laundromats have typically tried to stay cash businesses because there's perks of having cash businesses if you choose to use those. Some of them are legitimate and some of them are not legitimate. And I don't recommend using the illegitimate ways of avoiding taxes with a cash business. Some people do. But really, in my view, the advantages of adding a digital payment option are they far outweigh any of the negatives in terms of money being trackable and stuff like that, right? So you open your pool of buyers to a lot more people, and you remove a lot of friction for a lot of people. For a lot of people, it's I don't really carry cash personally, hardly ever anymore. I know some people do, and a lot of people don't, right? And so if you have a coin operated only, there's a friction there where you have to go get cash or quarters, or you got to bring the cash to the laundromat to the change machine and get quarters, and then take the quarters and put them in one at a time. And it's just a lot of friction, right? And so, as any kind of business owner, if you can remove friction, make things easier, make things more convenient, it's just going to be more valuable to your customer base. So, adding those is huge. For a while, I added a pickup and delivery service. However, it was around that same time where I started, my podcast and my platform, and that started taking off real fast as people started getting more and more interested in laundromats. And I got to a point where I had to sort of choose between the two. And I just love talking to people like you. I love trying to help other people achieve their goals as well. And so I eventually shut down the service side of the business of my laundromats and ended up focusing more on that. But I did run that for a little while, and it can be that was pre-COVID, and COVID and after, the service side of the business has just been blowing up all over the place. So it's really lucrative to get into that.
So it was lucrative to add the pickup drop off services. But just due to timing and what you were doing at the time, you couldn't dedicate focus to both at the same time. But it was making money. And did you add anything else like an ATM, soap dispensing? Did you offer clients soaps and dryer sheets to anything like that to bring in some addition, like a gumball machine, anything?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, sad story on the gumball machine. So my son, who at the time was maybe like 8, he actually saved a bunch of money and he bought a commercial gumball machine. And so I built him, his name's Noah, and I built him a little sign that said Noah's Gumball Land. And my buddy built him a stand that we bolted into the concrete there. And we did a little opening ceremony for his gumball machine business. And literally that same night, somebody broke into the laundromat, tied a strap around the stand and around their truck, and pulled that sucker out of the laundromat. And day one, that thing was gone. It was super sad, super hard lesson my son had to learn at like 8 years old. But again, I was still struggling through, rehabbing the reputation of the laundromat, which turned out to be more difficult than I anticipated. But again, unique situation, not typical. However, I was on a side hustle podcast at one point, and I was like, laundromats are kind of the ultimate side hustle because they're kind of a side hustle where you can run them that way if you want to, but they also can have a bunch of side incomes within the side income, right? So yeah, we had vending machines, we did snacks, we did sodas, we did like soaps, detergents, dryer sheets, all that stuff. One of my laundromats had a little convenience store basically. So we sold, all the snacks, sodas, detergents, all that stuff. We did ice cream. We did frozen burritos that we microwaved. We did candies. We did, all basically a full-on convenience store minus liquor. We didn't have liquor because
I was about to say
high school. You can, but it's across the street from the high school, so it was not a liquor area.
I'm going across the street to get.
That's right. That's right. I don't want to deal with that. But yeah, so we had massage chairs. We've had ATMs. We've had gumball or toy machines, video games. We've had water purifying machines. So there's all kinds of different things that you can kind of add into that. You just want to make sure that you don't get too carried away and you keep the main business because your real moneymaker is the washers and dryers. So you don't want to give up space, time, energy for some of these ancillary offerings and neglect your main business. That's the only kind of thing you want to be aware of.
So this is huge. Oh my gosh, this is huge. So multiple streams. He mentioned it earlier, y'all. Cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen to all the different income streams, but again, the biggest moneymaker was the washers and dryers. That was it. All washers and dryers you put in, or just washers that need to replace, or everything? You knocked out the whole thing.
We've done, yeah, we did all of it, multiple laundromats, right? So we've done all of them pretty much. Yeah.
And you transition from coin to now swipe card washers and dryers.
Hybrid. So hybrid model is you pay with either coin or card. Yeah. Either one. Actually, if your goal is to scale, like to multiple locations, eventually you're going to want to transition to a digital payment only. I think probably around 5 or 6 laundromats is probably your max that I would recommend accepting coin. Once you kind of get beyond that, you're just spending all day, every day driving around to your different laundromats, collecting quarters, and it's not worth it anymore. So
that sounds like a hassle. And
yeah.
so in the beginning you had a hybrid model machines, and then as you graduated and got more, how many locations do you have now?
So actually I'm back down to 1 right now, but the reason that I'm back down to 1 is I've been offloading the laundromats that I personally have been operating because the goal is to go out and roll up a portfolio of these guys. And I've got some investor backing, and that's sort of the trajectory I'm heading towards right now.
So you're looking for capital to purchase bigger laundromats. Did I understand that correct?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've got some capital partners, and yeah, we're trying to go get bigger and more of them. Yeah. Go.
Speaking of cash flow, y'all. We gotta go to a quick commercial break. We gotta pay some bills, pay our sponsors. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you a local business looking to offer your customers easy access to cash without having to travel miles? We're here to help. At Norman Legacy Investments, we provide free ATMs with free installation that provide a suitable investment for your business. Even better, we offer you some profit sharing and handle everything from start to finish. Just reach out to us today to schedule a free consultation.
Baby Gear Services DMV specializes in high-quality baby gear rentals in the Maryland and DC metro area. We have a wide range of baby gear items for rent, including wooden cribs, car seats, high chairs, and more. We also offer seasonal specials and free delivery. Our prices are very versatile to cover every budget. Wooden cribs start at $17 a day, high chairs and even car seats start at $5 a day. Check out our website, www.bgsdmv.com.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we have the Grand Poobah, Jordan Berry, laundromat guru, expert, growing, killing it, spilling the tea all over this episode. I am pumped. You all, if you missed anything that he's laying down on owning a laundromat, the pains, the gripes, the worries, and now where he is today, you guys got to scroll back, check him out. He's absolutely phenomenal, him and the family. Sir, I want to ask, how did you balance family, right? Because you're raising a newborn, you got your wife, right? You guys are transitioning, you guys are moving. How did you balance your time? Because as entrepreneurs, I think we struggle with that a lot, is how balancing time and family together. So what's your secret, sir?
Again, I mean, listen, I'm just going to keep it real with you. Early on, there was no secret and there was no balance because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just throwing my time at the problem because I didn't know what else to throw at it. So early on, I mean, there really was no secret, and there was probably very little balance there. But over time, as I kind of started to get a hold of the business and get an idea of what it means to own and run a business and to be an entrepreneur, to be an investor, to be a business owner, I started to remember, which I had forgotten because I was just, when you get like all wrapped up in your problems, sometimes it's just, you get tunnel vision right at your problems. Right.
For sure.
And I lost track of, we own real estate, we own businesses, we buy investments, you invest in 401k or stock market or bonds or whatever you're putting money into, right? We do that, in order to help us build the lives that we want to live, we don't, the goal is not to build our lives in order to, service those things. Right. And
True.
so, having that perspective shift and getting a little bit of space and breathing room to have that perspective shift. Yes, I do want to obviously run the best business that I possibly can. I do want to serve my customers and my community as best as I possibly can, but I can't lose track of one of the reasons that we even bought the laundromat in the first place was to give me more time with the family. Right. And so part of the secret is just letting go of things that feel essential, but that aren't essential, and having the wisdom to figure out what those things are. And honestly, early on, that is really difficult to decipher. And I think that's where, things like your podcast and what you've got going on, and other people who've been in the shoes that, whatever direction you're trying to go, to having some outside eyes into your life and into your business and into your goals, having all that, having somebody to help you kind of navigate all of that is huge. Right. And to say, hey, are you spending time with the family? And I'm like, I can't do that because of XYZ. That feels super urgent, feels super important, but in reality it can wait a little bit. Right. And remembering what's the most important thing, right? God, family, friends, and our businesses are up there, but it's on a different level than the important people in our lives. So
For sure. It sounds like your wife really, really supported you, right? Because I don't think most women could handle that time away from home. But it sounded like your wife really understood the mission, and it sounded like you did a great job in reminding her, hey, remember why we started this. Remember what the goal was, why we did this.
yeah.
So
And
super.
yeah, no, thank you. And I mean, listen, again, not to sugarcoat, like we had some difficult times, and being an entrepreneur, being an investor, it can be tough, man. It can be tough. It can be lonely. A lot of our friends didn't really understand the problems we were going through, and that feels isolating. But having a commitment with each other, to each other, and to sort of the goal, I think is vital. Because if one person is not aligned with that, it's just going to be difficult when things get tough to navigate that, when you're misaligned with each other. So and that takes a lot of communication back and forth.
Big facts. Big facts. The first year, how long were you struggling and losing money? How long was that going on?
More than the first year,
More.
probably. Yeah, probably 2.5 years. But a couple things about that. Again, not to scare anybody, because it's, again, not typical. But a couple things. So number one, there weren't really any resources. This was over a decade ago. There really weren't any resources out there to help. Now there's a lot more. In fact, the whole platform I put together was because I couldn't find the resources that I needed. So I was like, well, I'll just build it mostly for myself initially, so that I could learn how to be a better business owner. And
No
then,
mentors, no books, no nothing.
no, there really weren't any books. I tried desperately when I was losing money, and there's a stat that floats around out there. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but the stats that laundromats have a 95% success rate, and I was like, there is no way that I'm in the 5% that can't figure this easy business out. Like, there's just no way. I've got to figure this thing out. And I reached out to a bunch of people, and there wasn't anybody out there who was willing, that I could find, that was willing to help me out. So it was a struggle. So that was part of it. Now there's a lot more resources. There's people, that can help. Obviously, like I do that, and our team does that. And helps people. There's other people that do that also now who are really great. There's a lot of content online now where there wasn't back then. The other thing that happened was when I started losing money, I did the exact wrong thing, and I turtled up, right? And money was going out. And when money's going out, the only way to reverse that is to either get more business coming in, or to charge more. Like you got to have more money coming in. Like that's the only way to turn that around. Or sometimes you can reduce expenses, but I was running really lean already and still losing money. So you got to get more money in, but I turtled up and I was too scared to put more money out to invest in marketing and promotions and things like that to try to get more people in because money was going out, and it just exacerbated things and made things kind of spiral down like that. And that was a very expensive lesson to learn. So I relied on word of mouth, and word of mouth is great, but word of mouth can be very slow sometimes. So I focused on running the best business I possibly could. And it just took time for everything to kind of turn around and start to go in a positive direction.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years to turn it around, to turn a profit. And again, to protect my guest, he said this is not the norm. This was not a normal situation. This was not a normal purchase. Knowing what you know now, where would you say you should have, what would you do differently? Would you allocate funds less to marketing, more to marketing, flyers, postcards, door to door? What would you do differently with to that entrepreneur interested in buying a laundromat today? Where should they invest most of their time?
Yeah. Well, and I say this all the time, and I genuinely mean it. If me back then could have had a 15-minute conversation with me now, it would have saved me 6 figures, right? Like, wow. All this stuff seems very obvious to me now. It was not obvious at all. I know your audience is probably a lot more sophisticated than I was at the time, so it probably seems really obvious to them, but it wasn't to me. And so, if it was me and I was doing it over again, I would just find a different location. That's what it would come down to. But in terms of if I was in that situation again, when you're in a situation where you're losing money, the clock is ticking. So it's time to just go all in or cut your losses and get out. So, I wasn't ready to cut. I mean, part of the reason I kept it and hung in there, I don't want to seem like some kind of hero that persevered. Partly that was true. But also partly I was scared and I didn't know how to get out of it, frankly. But I would have just gone all in. Like, I think I needed to go all in, and I was sort of like him and Han a little bit. I didn't go into the marketing. I'd probably go so far as to, invest in some marketing. I'd probably go so far as to go knocking on all the apartment doors that were around the laundromat and just say, hey, come check out the laundromat. We put a lot of work into it. It's different than it used to be. Here's a free wash. Bring this coupon with you. I'll be hanging out there and I'll give you a free wash or whatever. And done the things that are not scalable, that are not passive, right? I went in with this mindset that this is going to be totally passive. And the reality of it was, because of the situation I found myself in, it wasn't passive, and I would have just gone for it. Or the other option would be, hey, cut my losses, go try something different.
When were you able to hire your first employee, or did you ever hire an employee? Yeah. When did that transition happen? At the 2.5-year point?
Yeah, no, before that I hired somebody. So at some point, I don't remember exactly how far it was, maybe a 1.5 years in or so, I hired somebody to come in for 2 hours a day to clean the place up and work through that. So that was, before I hit that profitability mark, I brought somebody in. One of the benefits of all of this is that while I was at the laundromat, I started listening to podcasts, and I listened to a ton of business podcasts, real estate investing podcasts. I was learning a ton and growing. And part of that whole process for me was going through that struggle to learn those lessons, but also there was a ton of time of educating. I went to college, at that laundromat by listening to podcasts and audiobooks and things like that. So the fact that you have this podcast here is huge for anybody listening to it, because this is like free college for people, right? Listening to your episodes is free college for people that can help them go farther, faster than they could on their own.
He's talking to you all. You guys are awesome. You guys make this super powerful, super dope, super dope. So thank you, Mr. Jordan. Thank you for that. And thank you for speaking to us and sharing in that way. I'm about to purchase a laundromat. You said it. Hey, just you should have went with a different location. But what things should I look for when buying a laundromat? Is it making sure the washers and that goes into the valuation of that laundromat? Making sure the washers and dryers. That's my biggest revenue stream. What else should I be looking for when considering a laundromat to purchase?
So there's two different methods to purchase here. You've got your zombie mat, your fixer upper laundromat. Typically, those tend to be at around, just as a rule of thumb, $150,000 or less. I generally assume those laundromats are really not making much money, if any money at all. And those would be like fixer upper laundromats. So the way that you value those, it's a little bit art and a little bit negotiation. Obviously, you just want to get it as cheaply as possible and know how much work and how much investment is going to need to go in on the back end to actually improve that business, whether that's replacing machines or just deep cleaning the place and having a friendly face there. Sometimes it's just your employees that are driving people away. Kind of whatever the issue is with that particular laundromat. But for the majority of laundromats, you're valuing the laundromat based on 4 numbers. Okay. So the first number is the cornerstone of the value of a laundromat. That's your net operating income. And just so we're on the same page, net operating income is your total income coming in minus your expenses going out, but before like loan payments, taxes, those types of expenses. So net operating income, that's the first number, cornerstone of the value of the laundromat. So to translate that to a valuation, you're going to apply a multiple to that laundromat. So today, what is it? End of August 24, early September 24. The average multiple is somewhere in the 4 to 5.5 times that net operating income. And that the where on the spectrum the multiple lies for a particular laundromat depends on the other 3 numbers. Okay. So we got the net operating income. Then the other 3 numbers we need are number 1, the age and condition of the machines. Number 2, how much the rent amount is. And then number 3, how many years are left remaining on the lease. So those 3 numbers help you figure out where on the spectrum between the 4 to 5.5 on average, the multiple is going to be, and you're going to multiply that by your net operating income, and that's going to spit out your valuation for you.
Wow. Sauce. Nuggets. This is the sauce right here, right now on Gentleman Style Podcast stage. Sir, this is phenomenal. What do you see in the future? What do you got coming down in the pipeline? What's in store? What's next? You mentioned real estate is a part of you and your family's portfolio, and you've sold off your personal stuff that you were managing to do something bigger. What's next? What you got planned?
Yeah, for me. So, So, I mean, the plan is to go out and buy some portfolios, some larger portfolios of laundromats. That's just kind of where I'm at personally. However, if you're looking to buy your first one, like there is no shame in going to buy, that $100,000, $200,000 laundromat, getting some cash flow rolling. One thing that I say is, if you get your foot in the door, a lot more doors open up for you. This is, I think, true in real estate, but also true here with laundromats. You've got a lot of options that open up to you. Deals tend to flow to you a little bit more. And, it's interesting being in a position where I'm talking about laundromats. I'm advocating, laundromats are a great way to hit financial freedom, replace your 9 to 5. They're a great vehicle for that. And being in a place where I've sold a lot of my laundromat assets. However, it's because that I think so highly of them that I want to go all in, kind of like what I was talking about with my first laundromat, right? It's like you either go all in or you cut bait and go try something different. And so, jumping in the deep end over here.
Go all in. Do it, y'all. This has been an epic conversation. Mr. Jordan, you're my hero. This is incredible. This is the sauce, man. Mr. Jordan, 2 things. That young girl, that young man out in the audience watching this right now. You shared so many nuggets, so much insight, so many tips. and they're tired of their 9 to 5. They're tired of doing that data grind, and they're willing to put in the year, the 2 years, the 3 years on themselves. What would you say to that young boy, that young girl right now, if their back is against the wall and they feel like there's nothing out there for them? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Here's what I would say. Number one is there is something out there for you. There is a path for you. Are you going to have some adversity? Absolutely. And if you don't, you should be worried, because entrepreneurship, financial freedom, real estate investing, I mean, there's just going to be adversity. And if you expect that, then you're not going to be surprised when it happens, right? And I see a lot of people get frustrated when their expectations are mismatched with what reality is, right? So don't be fooled by it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. And I say that coming through some of the darkest times of my life was when I was losing money, and that voice in the back of my head is like 95% of people succeed in this business and you're one who can't figure it out. Right. So that's one thing, is there's a path, there's a way, you can do it. You've got this podcast right here, this episode, but all the other episodes too, to help guide you find your vehicle, and a vehicle is just a vehicle. So pick one. And one thing I'll say, I think everybody needs to hear this at some point in their life. I need to hear this multiple times, probably a day, is if you hear and you listen to this podcast or this episode or another episode or other podcasts, you will have wasted your time if you don't pick something from those episodes and put it into action. The only thing that is going to help you achieve your goals is putting the knowledge into action, right? So don't get caught in that learning loop where you're learning, and you're not doing. The doing is what's going to help you achieve your goals. So if your goal is an extra $500 a month to help take pressure off the bills, or it's financial freedom, or you need $10,000 a month, or whatever your goal is, the only way to get there is to step out and take some action. Now, do it smartly, do learn, do stay educated, continue to learn, but you've got to learn and do, and learn and do, and learn and do. That's the cycle you want to get in, not the learn, podcast, and never do. So that's the biggest piece of advice I have if you're looking to achieve some kind of goal that has some sort of ambition behind it.
Huge. I got nothing. Drop the mic on that. Sir, how can people connect with you? How can my audience find you?
Yeah. So laundromatresource.com. Laundromat Resource is the platform. We've got a podcast over there. We interview laundromat owners and other industry professionals. So if you're interested particularly in laundromats, it's worth a listen. Laundromatresource.com. There's a free course to help you get started over there. It's 3 lessons, super solid. I do a free webinar almost every single week. And, that course answers a lot of questions that come up through that webinar. And I've been doing that for a few years now. So it's a solid basics course over there. We're on YouTube, all the different platforms. You can find us on the social platforms too. And my email is Jordan, Jordan, like Michael Jordan. A lot of people confuse us. But Jordan at laundromatresource.com.
For our audio listeners, he looks like Michael Jordan too. So
yeah, exactly.
If you want to see him, you got to go to the YouTube and check him out.
Image. And our basketball skills are pretty similar, I'd say.
Check him out, y'all. This is dope. Mr. Jordan, again, I want to say this to you publicly. Don't ever quit. We need you.
I appreciate that. And Marcus, man, thank you for having me on the show. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar, and I admire both.
Thank you all. And thank you all for tuning in to this incredible jam-packed hero of mine. We got to let him go. He has many more businesses to do and many more things to achieve and spend time with his family, which is why he started. Thank you all for tuning into the show. I hope this message has served you. I hope this helps you take you to the next level and get started. Like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the grand poobah of laundry, Jordan Berry, signing off.